Ex-cons of Reddit. What's the worst thing that happened to you whilst doing your time? Serious. Did 7 in Pennsylvania State Prison. Saw a guy who was accidentally cleared by psych to be in general population go out to yard and try to cut his own head off with the razor wire. It was morning yard, not a lot of people out, and he sprinted toward the fence as soon as he got out there. We all thought, oh crap, we've never seen someone try to get over these forests of razor wire. But then this sucker turns around with his back right up against the fence. Cops coming from 3 directions yelling into their radios, and he loops a circle of razor wire around his neck and starts sawing. A freaking waterfall of blood. Cops froze. Everyone froze. That crap was really unexpected. They told us he lived, but frick me if I know how. Definitely the most brutal one I've read so far. That's freaking insane. I suppose seeing people getting taken advantage of all of the time, and then not caring was the worst. New guys coming in and getting ripped off on trades and stuff. People with social developmental issues just getting their food taken from them. Also, the psychology of people without goals gets weird. What was worst was just becoming part of that world. There are so many people there that have their rights taken away from them on a regular basis and don't care anymore. They choose to place value on being able to make others fear them. They stop thinking about the world beyond the walls and just get all wrapped up in the weird culture of the place. There was a day I was feeling proud of myself because I was running around organizing contraband trades, setting up poker games, and owning things like hardcover books and the only dice in the place. In that moment of pride I realized I had started to lose my mind. It's honestly hard to remember the months in there because most of the time nothing's freaking happening. Nothing. You've read until you can't stand it. You've slept all you can. You can't play cards cause your celly is sleeping. So you stare at the ceiling and wait. It's so weird to realize you're doing the equivalent of time out for months. You're not waiting for 5 minutes. Not waiting 5 hours. You're waiting for a day that is months away. Just waiting. TLDR. It's like being in a DMV with a bunch of buttholes, and your number isn't up until next January. My family came to visit me on Christmas Day the first year I was in. I was so ashamed that I had a little breakdown the next day and punched the cinder block wall inside my cell. One of the guards invited me to come talk to him. I made the mistake of thinking he was a friend and was talking about the meaning of life and why things happened. He decided he thought I was suicidal, which I wasn't. The next day I was shipped off to a maximum security prison in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Stripped down naked and given a Kevlar smock to wear. They keep the temperature down at 60 degrees, which means that you have to stay huddled in a corner to conserve body heat. Because this was observation, I wasn't allowed to have anything. Nothing to read, watch, etc. Naked and cold for an entire week. If you'd like to see what this is like, turn your thermostat down. Then take all your clothes off and sleep on the floor of your bathroom with the light on for 6 days straight. No showering either. Wasn't offered a chance to clean myself. That's how I spent New Year's 2007. Observation is not some kind of psychological treatment. It's punishment and mental torture. Sleeping and singing to yourself is all you can do. Too cold to do anything else. Freaking brutal. Now I try to go out of the country for New Year's Eve every year. My cellmate put jam in my shoes the morning of my release. Oh, and when I first got there they accidentally entered me into the system twice, giving me 2 prisoner IDs, only one of which worked, and put all my money and post on the other one. Didn't sort this out till I finished my sentence months later. 12 months on the inside. Very first day in prison. Very first day, I was in line for supper and this big guy comes up behind me, squeezes my butt and whispers in my ear, "Are your panties wet?" Scared shitless I turned around, and the guy jumped back and said in a friendly tone, "Oh, my mistake mate, thought you were someone else," and left the line. I did 1/2 years in Texas prisons. I believe that the worst story I can recall was my first full day in a state jail facility, used as a transition center for up to 2 years before one is sent to a real prison in Texas. A guy came up to me asking if I smoke cigarettes. I didn't, but thought, why not? So he told me to head to the gym when that time came later that afternoon. We went to the gym and fired up a cigarette while we walked around the basketball court. As we were walking around the court, we approached the universal gym machine where a variety of people were using the various pieces to work out. The guy who offered me the cigarette advised me to follow him to the other side of the basketball court and to stay away from the universal gym. A few minutes later a guy sat down and leaned back to do some bench press when 4 guys grabbed him. 1 on each arm and 1 on each leg. 2 other guys pull out cans of chili or refried beans as both were available, in socks and proceed to hammer the guy in the face. The guy at the bench press had his face completely caved in. All I could think was, what have I gotten myself into? I also recall one other time when I was at the pre-release facility at the Beto unit where a guy had his face cut up with a box cutter and his throat slit over $20. The guy who died even had about $40 worth of cigarettes on him when he died. I never had anything happen to me directly per se. There were a few fights I got into over various things, usually just respect. Now I am just rambling. At first I thought that didn't sound so bad. Then I realized that the chili was still in the cans. Processing into LA County Jail. Just after the first showers, everybody is lined up to proceed to the next stage of processing. We were told to leave our towels in a pile on the floor and step forward when your name is called. One Hispanic fellow was called but did not speak any English. He was still carrying his towel. The deputy commanded him to stop and leave his towel in the pile. He did not respond. One deputy used his taser on the dude while 2 others dropped knees on him. The guy was rolling on the floor screaming apologies in broken English and Spanish. The guy received 1 warning. A few of us tried asking other Hispanics to inform him of the rule before he got to the deputies, but no further effort was made. I realize this isn't the worst tale on this post, just goes to show that violence happens for totally silly reasons in jail prison. The funny thing is, there is no law in the entire United States mandating a citizen to know English. There is, however, a law that mandates any formal documents to be translated into any given language when requested. I saw a guy with swastika tattoos on his body befriend a flamboyantly gay, black man, platonically. Turned my whole world upside down. Actually, for all I know it could have been a flamboyantly black, gay man. Either way, it was sweet. While waiting in jail to go to the PDC, there were 5 guys from my block that liked making people fight. They made up stories and stole things, then would act like your buddy and say they found your stuff in this guy's bunk. I was warned about this. They finally targeted me and this guy twice my size. Luckily he was warned too. They stole my deodorant, which is a prize where I was, and put it in his bunk. They told me where it was and I acted mad. Then we all went to his cell. The big guy looked at me and I said, "You stole from me." "No one steals from me." I winked at him and began lightly slapping him. He laughed and slapped lightly back. We both were yelling. Everyone laughed and I got my deodorant back. The 5 dudes saw we knew what they were up to and moved on to other new inmates. Even though everything worked out, I was secretly crapping and wetting myself to oblivion in my mind. I winked at him and began lightly slapping him. He laughed and slapped lightly back. This makes prison sound like a hoot. Sign me up. I can answer as an ex-corrections officer. I was 4 years in Cofield unit in Texas. I think the worst thing I ever saw was a guy who was masturbating with a light bulb. One of those little screw-in 60-watt light bulbs. Anyway, the guy stuck it up his butt, glass end first, and couldn't get it out. He asked the guards to take him to medical and I was on the escort team. He was in segregation. We get to medical and sit for a while. Next thing I know, the guy is screaming, blood and crap run everywhere, and he just passes out. We ended up having to life flight him out to the closest hospital where they opened him up and rinsed his butt out. I was in the room the whole time. I'm still traumatized. Did 3 weeks in county for basically being at the wrong place at the wrong time. I had just turned 18 and had never been in trouble, not even in school. I was interrogated in a small room by a huge undercover agent with a stash who told me that they knew I was the ringleader and that he would make it his personal mission to see that I spent the rest of my life in jail. Did not know any details, so I said nothing. When I was put in a cell, my cellmate was a 6'2" bald Mexican gangster guy, and every night he would loudly masturbate while I clinched my thin bed sheets in fear, not sleeping until I knew for sure I no longer heard him. I was released for lack of evidence. Good times. Smart move not talking. Always call a lawyer always. Doesn't matter if they have nothing on you. Lawyer up. Anything you say they can use against you without context. Some interrogation techniques are brutal. Came in late and I've shared in a similar thread about the guys getting beat to death in front of me, so I'll share my worst that I was involved in. I was arrested in a different state after skipping out of my home state. While waiting for extradition back, they don't frick around. County maximum security. I'm in with the worst of the worst. All murder, rape, kidnapping charges. So my only experience with jail prior to this was watching the Shawshank Redemption Oz prison shows on TV. So I'm scared shitless. I'm a big guy. At the time 6'6", about 280 pounds. Pretty solid fighter. But I know I'm in with hardened criminals that will kill me for a cupcake. Or so I thought. Anyway. First day in, I stay in my cell. Sleep all day. Think about my life. Halfway through the day, a group of the biggest guys come in and ask for my papers to make sure I wasn't a pedo. Later I talk to my cellmate a bit and he seems nice. Says he needs a spades partner and I know how to play. He says the next day we will play and he will show me around. Next morning we sleep in and around 11 go down and get a game. I'm like a scared rabbit looking around checking my back just waiting to get shanked. We get to playing and I'm getting to know the guys. Everyone seems cool. I'm good at spades and so is my cellie, so we are kicking butt. After a few games the other team is getting agitated and I'm gloating a bit. So the guy to my right eventually gets upset and starts yelling, calling me a cheat and this and that. I brush it off but I'm on full alert just waiting for a fight. So when he yells frick this and frick you, he stands up and I pop up and blast him in the face as hard as I can. He crumples to the ground and starts spitting out teeth. Everyone in the common area just stares at me like WTF. It was later explained that people get upset at card games but never fight in view of gourds. As someone who is about to do a few months for the first time, this really takes some of the nerves away. It'll be in minimum security though, so hopefully it will be even more chill than what you described. I wouldn't mind hearing that beat to death story either. 8 months inside and one instance always sticks out in my mind. I was running out of phone minutes and spending what precious time I had left talking to my child. We didn't get to talk as much as I liked. Had unfortunately more important people to talk to, lawyers, trying to find jobs for my release, etc. This butthole comes up, I need the phone. Hold on man, I only got a couple minutes left. He takes the phone and slammed it into the crappy payphone holster and abruptly hung up on my daughter. Still breaks my heart because I cherish every minute I can have with her. I spent a short amount of time in a county jail. The first morning they came and handed out those small cardboard cereal boxes that come in variety packs. I remember wolfing down the cereal as I hadn't eaten in a day or two and was starving. They then came back around and served the milk. I was pee. I'm sure this really sucked at the time and I'm sorry for your suffering, but goddammit it, that was funny. I was incarcerated for 9 years 1 month 4 days. I've seen many things. I just turned 30. I will start a AMA when I have time. The worst I've seen was 2 guys on life sentences back in courts for retrial, seeing a rival enemy and for DUI over the weekend. Guy didn't make it home. 2 lifers stabbed him, I'm assuming 100 times, tied him up in blankets, sent to trash delivery. 2 guys were caught day later when missing body was found before trash was disposed. That's the problem with lifers. Nothing to lose. My experience is pretty weak compared to most of these other posts, but here it is. I haven't told this story in a few years, so this is as best as I can recall it. I did a mere 6 months in a county jail for false public alarm in 2006. I was young. I was dumb. Whatever. I only had one bad experience and it was on my 3rd day there. Woke up for chow at 6:30 am. At this jail, they delivered your pre-trade food to your cell block. And at this time I was in intake block, where you stay for a few days before they put you in Gen Pop. There wasn't a cafeteria type line or anything. Anyway, I get my food and sit down at a table next to my cellmate, who happened to be a fairly large, skin-headed Nazi type dude. Sorry, can't think of a less offensive way to describe him. And we were talking normal crap. Suddenly I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's this massive black dude. Very intimidating looking, jacked dude. He says to me, "Give me your food." I was scared. No joke, but I thought to myself, this is jail, man. Stand up for yourself, so I said no. Again, "Give me your freaking food." "No, you already have food." He gets in my face and yells, "Spits, gimme your food," and went to grab my tray. I thought fast and decided frick it and knocked my entire tray of food on the floor. "There, have it. You want it so bad." No sooner had I said that when I saw stars. Guy sucker punched me right in my left eye. Surprised I didn't get KOED. Did get a pretty nasty black eye, though. My celly sprung immediately to action, along with 2 other skinhead dudes who were at the next table, and they start pummeling this dude. I threw in a few kicks to his body while he was down. Never got to do that before. Guards show up, break it all up. Me, dude, celly, and the other 2 dudes get put into segregation, solitary, while they investigate. I thought to myself at this time, well, there goes my good time. Day for me. Great. Seg sucks. I was in there for 1 sleep and another half day when guards come and let me out. Turns out we had a snitch in our block. Gave the guards a completely detailed account of how it went down. Me and my celly, not sure about the other 2 guys, as I never saw them again, got to go back to our block. Never saw big black dude again. It was a scary situation, and the only situation where I felt unsafe or feared for my life. I'm sure it's worse in prison, but I was only in jail. All in all, 6 months in county felt more like summer camp. I learned my lesson, and have, and continue to be, a free man. Almost a huge fight between 3 Vietnam vets and a 25-year-old M dealer because he switched from the History Channel to that week's new Breaking Bad during our precious TV time. That was my first time watching the show and he made the right call. M dealer stays true. 3 things. 2 weeks in, I'm in a fight for my life with a 250-pound serial rapist that wanted my butt. 2 years in and I get informed my 5-year-old was run over and killed when her mother was dropping her off at the babysitter's. She let my 5-year-old cross the street alone. And then 2 days before my release, my grandma passed. The only family I had and connection to the outside world. She let me call her once a month collect. Good lord, I am so sorry to hear that. My dad was released from prison 2013. I didn't visit him very often because I was 16 when he left and was very hurt, but we've had a lot of conversations about what happened while he was in there. He tells me over and over that the worst thing for him while he was in there was the isolation. While he was in there I was arrested, and later went to rehab. My brother was in 2 DUIs and nearly died. My mother served him divorce papers almost as soon as he got in there. As a hopeful future father and husband, I cannot imagine a worse scenario. You literally have to sit around while the people you care about the most fade from view. Slowly every day you wonder if they're thinking about you and if they still love you the way you love them. You have to wonder what they're going to be like when you get out in years. You see your family is broken hearted and you can't reach out to them. Not only because they won't let you, but because you physically cannot leave. I did 10 years in federal maximum joints. Saw lots of crap. Worst thing. During a riot some guy got his face beaten off of his skull with clubs. Inmates had broken the legs off some tables and taped 3 former Sturlock padlocks around the end. Dude had no face. Blood everywhere. Only 1 person died in that riot. I did 6/1/2 years in a dock for armed robbery. In my 5th year I walked past someone on the ground having a seizure of some sort, but because he was white and I am Chicano, I kept walking and told myself, his people need to handle that. Seeing so starkly how prison had hardened my heart, that was extremely hard to handle. Still is difficult to deal with at times. The adaptations I made to live quietly in prison could be the worst things to have happened to me whilst doing my time. Overdose in the bathroom overnight. Smoking crack and had an asthma attack. Frick. On another unit they found a crappy M lab. Still, during my time there almost 10 years for suicides. Avoid going to prison, everyone. I was beaten by officers the first day in intake. I was already cuffed and he was adjusting the seat next to me in the booking cell. I had just seen my friend die from drug overdose and was on a lot of H and Xanax myself. I got up to give him room and he armbarred me into the wall, giving me a concussion and required 12 stitches, and punched me in the ribs twice while calling for backup. I was less than 130 pounds from the M&H binge I had undergone the 2 months prior and was clearly not violent or resisting. He was well over 200 pounds. Well, I was in a semi-rough spot in state prison in FL. They have a JIT gang, Kids 1924, that goes around and robs people for their stuff. A bunch of us got into it with this JIT gang, and I got hit in the face with, get this, a National Geographic magazine rolled up extremely tight and wrapped with packing tape. Never knew magazines could be made so hard. Well anyways, I got hit right in the mouth toward the left side, and it broke the tooth to the left of my front tooth, and the 2 teeth next to it off at the gums. So, I had to have them cut my gums open and surgically remove the 3 broken teeth. Crap hurt so bad. Also, at the same camp and having to do with this incident, I got caught with a knife and went to the box confinement for 58 days in June and July of 2012. And in FDOC, there's no air conditioning, so it's freaking hot in that crap. Went into the box at 190 pounds on the head, came out at 171 pounds. I was a county inmate being held in a federal hold pod in a northern Utah county jail. It was my first and only charge, misdemeanor theft, and I ended up doing 14 months for it. 2 months while awaiting court process and 12 months when probation was revoked for leaving the state. Anyhow, the place was a mess. You had a sprinkling of short-time county inmates and a whole bunch of people awaiting huge federal sentences. My cellmate, for example, was indicted for his involvement in 99 gang-related murders. There was a large population of white supremacists, some of whom I would play cards with when I first got there. I had no idea of prison lingo, nothing. Smash cut to a weekend and we are playing spades in the common area with everyone else. The scariest man I have ever seen in my life smacks down the queen of spades on me to win. I laugh and say, you freaking punk. Good game. You could hear it pin drop in that place. He looks at me and calmly says if my own mother called me a punk, I would slit her throat and watch her die. I had no idea what to do and simply stuttered my way through telling him I had never been to jail and did not understand the gravity of what I said. I then apologized. He sat for what seemed like hours in the room, stayed silent. He then said apology accepted and we started another game. My cellmate later asked me if I knew how close I got to being killed that night. Happened to someone close. Let's call him X. Put in maximum security Australian jail for 3 years. So basically, each inmate was given a loaf of bread. This bread was meant to last you and you ration it for eating throughout the week. You had bread and water and the meals given to you throughout the day. No other food was allowed to be bought or kept in the block. Now, the rule that no one is meant to break is fricking with someone's bread. Because if the guards go on strike you literally don't eat, you're locked in your cell with water and bread. Most jails are now run privately but used to be all be run by the government. This was 16 years ago. At first I was like, no way, they have to feed you. They have to have guards people to look after crap. Well apparently not. Some guards did go for the $, not enough to monitor everyone and feed everyone. Now I'm not sure why, but crapping in stuff is super popular in jail, especially women's jail. Another personal story, and people would crap in beds, pillowcases, under the mattress. X was cunning, never really getting caught and never really not noticing. Like, how do you lay your head in a pillowcase full of crap? This kind of stuff did you get you bashed, but not really a big deal apparently. Most inmates had 2 pairs of shoes. X was down to 1 pair, and this aboriginal fellow shat in his shoes and managed to get bay powder to mask the scent. Oh no, he stepped in crap, but wait, there is more. This was literally 2 weeks before his release. So X for 2 weeks ripped a hole in his mattress and shat in it for 2 weeks, non-stop, crapping in his mattress and sleeping on the floor. The day before his release he switched the beds when he got a chance, and while that was happening also shat in his bread. So this aboriginal is left with a mattress filled with crap. Can't swap it, can't get a new one, until someone else leaves. TLDR. Guy I knew shat in a mattress for 2 weeks then left it with someone who shat in his shoe. Never been to prison, but my friend got locked up for 6 years. His first week in prison, He got a few fingers ripped off when the gates to his cell opened. He had his hands on the bars talking to someone in another cell. The buzzer went off, and the gate immediately started to open, and he didn't have time to get one of his hands out. His fingers got caught. He started screaming, and people were shouting for the guard who controls the button to the gate to reverse it, but I guess he couldn't hear them. They got wedged between two bars and ripped clean off his hand. Freaking brutal. He is a good person too. He just made a mistake when he was young and the judge was really harsh on him. He told me that other inmates mentioned that the same thing happened to a bunch of other inmates in the past, so it wasn't an isolated incident. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.